I'd always listen to metal and hardcore growing up. The hardcore stuff was primarily the more sort of metal tinged stuff, like, you know, Septic Death and you know, the crossover stuff as well, thrash, you know, was what I was really... I'd grown up listening to a lot of the Japanese stuff, which was pretty easily accessible. You know, being a metal kid, I listened to the Relapse releases by Merzbauer and Masona. I mean, that was really important for me as a young person, because, you know, it established a link there and was a bridge across into that stuff from where I had been. In fact, I've only just recently started playing bass in a band. Sort of, it's a one-string bass, so not really. I can't play any instrument at all. This band I'm referring to with the bass is called Collapse Toilet Vietnam, and it's like a noisecore band with, you know, rock instrumentation, but everything's kind of broken down, and I'm just playing this one-string bass through it, the pitch shifter and a bunch of distortion. And it's more about the texture of that sound. I don't really contribute anything melodically to that band, or not that it has any melodic element really at all, but it's... The first band that I was in when I moved to Melbourne was a short-lived project called Paul of Blood. Paul is in the person's name. Following that, I was in a band called George W. Bush for quite a while. Although it was relatively short-lived, we did manage to tour up the coast a couple of times. And then following that, I became the vocalist for a band called True Radical Miracle, which is still kind of...
And what about Whitehorse?
Well, that's the band that has overseas releases, you know, a release on a European label, a release on an American label. And we've toured to Japan and to the States. It's sort of dormant at the moment. We've just recently got together and did a jam together for the first time in a year or so. Since the tour of the US, we'd kind of been inactive, and everyone had been doing other things, because everybody in that band is active doing other projects. But it's something where I sort of contribute paraelectronics, really. I don't maintain an interest in noise since sort of the mid-90s. But the area of paraelectronics is only really sort of in the last 5 years that I've become aware of it, really. Absolute and calfutrail.
Calfutrail.
Yeah, which means sort of absolutely sealed or completely sealed.
Right.
Which was it's the title of a short graphic story by a guy named Mobius, who's quite well known. Conceptually pretty easy to explain. It's just it has no text involved in it at all. There's nothing to read. It's just a figure falling through a series of environments, and as the figure reaches what you would think would be the ground, where he's going to die and it would be the end, he goes straight through that into another environment and just keeps falling through for the duration of this story, until in the end he finally reaches an environment that looks like the American West and hits the ground with and creates a mushroom cloud. The things I'm doing by myself, I'm really interested in processing the vocal to get a more, you know, either a harsher sound or a more aggressive sound, or something sounding less human. In terms of the texts that I write to use as you know, lyrics, or to be read as a part of something, or to be screened is kind of a and I guess this doesn't make it give it any particular sense of character, but it's anxiety and stress. That there's no sort of cathartic element to it, really.
Right.
It's just when I considered what it was that I wanted to use as the basis for that stuff, that was foremost in my mind. That's what occupies me a lot. It can be very negative in some ways, but it can also be embarrassing as well. And it can also conjure, you know, many things can be the result of that. Some good, not so good. Having seen things like there's a couple of Grunt DVDRs that a friend of mine and I have that he's gotten through trades with Miko. Having seen that stuff, there is obviously supposed to be this kind of transgressive element to it, but I don't really see it like that. It's more just an exploratory thing.
Right.
We all have our own position in relation to these things politically, and in terms of our own ideologies. But I don't necessarily think that that's a reason to block yourself from them or to not look into them with interest.
Right. Right.
Having a sense of perspective, I think, that's come with age. I think that I can engage with these things in a way that means that I can find something of interest. I can learn things from them, be they positive or negative.
How do you...
The things that I'm making are not necessarily all that suited to that area. You know, there are those traditional themes that we always hear about in relation to power electronics, and I don't think that they're necessarily present in what I'm doing at all. If I'm talking about something like a personal anxiety, or a lot of which is informed by employment, in things that I, you know, when I considered what I could actually write about, it was those things in terms of anxiety. I have anxieties concerning my workplace. I have anxieties in relation to my relationships with other people, and I think that is quite. It's a very personal sort of thing, rather than being something that talks about. I guess that's a very, very sort of generalised, and there's a complexity there that I'm not describing very well in words.
That's okay.
Just drawing a separation there between the political and the personal. Though, of course, both of those things are intrinsically linked. So, certainly at a small show like that, none of the stuff the anxieties that I'm exploring lyrically or any of that stuff is directed at the people in the room at all. You know, they're my friends. Usually, they're people that I actually feel a connection to and share something with. So I'm quite at pains not to be in your face, so to speak, for them to be, because I do feel as though, to an extent, they're on side.
I mean, I noticed with the cassettes that there was a certain sinister feel,
Sure,
which I liken to Brighter Death now. Are there objectives like that happening?
Certainly. I love those sounds. I've in terms of mood, that's absolutely where I would like things to be positioned. Again, it harkens back to the stuff that I was talking about, where I come from in terms of the sort of music that I love. It was always something that had a very sort of evil bent to it in a way, or had an aggressive bent, or you know, that's always been the thing that's really resonated with me. That's not particularly reflective of who I am and how I relate to other people necessarily, but it is something that really does resonate deeply with me in terms of mood. I love that. I love to listen to it, and I love to create that.